Good morning. It looks like we can start a little early, which is always great. It's great to see all of you. Welcome to Frankfurter Buchmesse on day one. Do you feel shot out of a cannon yet? If you don't, you will. My name is Porter Anderson. I am the editor-in-chief at Publishing Perspectives. Our mission is to cover, thanks to Frankfurt, the international scene in publishing, trends and issues, and we're very fortunate. It's quite a great privilege to have this, and then to meet so many of you whom we talk to and cover during the year here in person at Frankfurt. So welcome. I hope you're going to have a marvelous fair this week. It's looking like it's shaping up very well. I'm excited about our first executive talk. Who's opening the fair with us. Perminder Mann is the newly minted, we could say, CEO of Simon & Schuster UK and international in that company. She has jumped from, if you will, Bonnier Books UK, having done, was it 8 years there, I think?
15.
15. How it passes when you're having fun, right? No, it's a marvelous background that she's bringing now to this company that, of course, is as we always love to say in the United States, Simon & Schuster is the one independent Big Five company. And to see it operate so beautifully as it does in England and in the UK and in Europe and in Australia and in India is fascinating. And we're going to hear a great deal about that as we listen to Perminder tell us what her still very fresh insights and concepts are as she moves into this new role and brings everything that she knows to a very talented staff, a very gifted group that's there, about 200 of them in the UK itself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very big company. Are we going to get invitations to your new buildings? It's going to be a nice spot, yes?
Absolutely,
Good.
Of course.
Good. We're taking down everyone's address so we get the invitation. No, there's a new set of digs to come, yes, which sounds exciting.
Very.
What's the timeline on that? We won't hold you to it.
Early next spring.
Spring. Good. That's not bad.
That's the plan.
That's not bad. Well, hoping it happens that way. That is great. No, it sounds like it's going to be very beautiful and very well earned. The company is such a grand one. We're very proud of it in the States. S&S is the one we think of as ours. And we are so glad to see the kind of flourishing impact that it has in the UK and in its offshore elements that are so powerful too, and getting more so all the time. So we're going to take ourselves through a conversation that we've worked out a little bit ahead of time to make sure that Perminder is given a chance to talk to us from the new point she's in. Sometimes I think when someone is still new to a position of this level of authority, we tend to ask them to jump ahead about 5 years and tell us what they can't possibly know yet. It's more interesting to see what she's seeing as a veteran, as we've learned from Bonnier, who actually is able to come in and look at things and see this is where it should be, this is not where it should be. And what she's getting and what she can change and what she feels she may not be able to. As we all know, every company has its own personality, but she's got a very good one with a great personality. And of course, she has then become one of our very fine and not enough women leaders in publishing. The fact that she is in that office is just fantastic. It's very exciting. And we need to see more women who are reaching these upper echelons of the executive suite. In publishing, we hope to see more and more of this occur. Perminder is a very, very fine example, and of course will be a great help to some of the others who follow her in that regard. Let me get my glasses on so I know which question I want to ask her first. We can't see a thing of you. The lights are very bright here. So if we look a bit blank every now and then, it's because we're listening for you. Keep making a little noise so we know you're there. Bring this together. Here we go. Yeah, I should say it was in February, I believe, that the announcement came across that you'd be making the move, and you actually moved in May.
Correct.
Right, so we're looking at a very short time, actually, and I love that. The freshness of this experience is exciting to the rest of us, because as I say, we just don't get that sometimes. But tell me this, Perminder, as we look at where you are now, how is it that this appealed to you? Because especially with 15 years, longer than I realized it was, at Bonnier, doing great things in the UK, many people would look and say, well, you're already in such a fantastic top seat in that regard. What appealed to you? What made this the way to go?
So first of all, thank you for having me here this
Of
morning.
course, thank you.
It's a real honour and privilege, and thank you for the intro. So, it was, funnily enough, I wasn't actually looking for a new role. I'd spent the last few years, I've been there 15 years, but the last sort of 8 years in the CEO role, rebuilding the business from the ground up, repositioning it, refocusing and its values, and really creating a culture that people wanted to be part of. We had just finished planning our office move. I'm the CEO of Office Moves. This is going to be my fourth one, and also planning our warehouse relocation. And the business was thriving, and I absolutely loved working there. And it was and it always will be very special to me, Bonnier, and I have a special place in my heart. I just put in a great, brilliant new leadership team across the business. And I remember thinking, coming to the end of last year, now's the time to perhaps slow down a little and enjoy the rewards of my hard work of the last few years and just see the team flourish, and the business was doing really well.
Exactly.
And then I got this rare and exciting opportunity knocking on my door about this role, and it stopped me in my tracks. And in that moment, I realized, actually, I'm not ready to slow down yet. I had the energy, the drive, the appetite to rebuild again, to do it again, to put everything that I had learned to a new challenge. But this time, something sort of on a larger global canvas. So, when these things come along, you sit down and you're trying to make that decision. It's a balance of sort of logic and instinct. For me, instinct won hands down. It just felt like this was the right next chapter for me.
Right.
There's so many parallels between the two businesses as well. They've both got great cultures, great people. They're both great businesses. The difference was Simon & Schuster has this extraordinary global heritage, an iconic backlist, and I felt it had a platform that was ready to be revitalized, re-energized for the next generation. And I thought to myself, actually, I really want to be part of that story. So here I am.
It's wonderful. I should tell you that in the United States, we think of Simon & Schuster as one of our greatest political publishers, maybe our greatest, maybe the one that is the bravest, and that will go to both sides, by the way, of the aisle when they need to, and when it's right to. We've been talking a little bit. There was a fascinating period a few years ago when some of the then departing Republican figures, as the first Trump administration came out, were of course working on books, and one of those people was Mike Pence, the vice president. And there was an interesting moment when the staff of Simon & Schuster dealt with together the idea of how important it is for a great house to come in with both sides of the aisle, because many of the staffers who were there at the time were much more comfortable perhaps with the Democratic administration that was coming in than the outgoing Republican administration. Those are such great teachable moments. They're so wonderful for all of us to get hold of what good political means. When we talk about it in publishing, it doesn't mean the one that you want all the time. It doesn't mean your side, the ones you voted for. It can mean both sides, and so much to learn from in both. So I'm just interjecting that because if you were to ask many Americans right now, what do you think of Simon & Schuster? Great political books. It's what we watch for from them, as well as this enormous panoply of material and literature that's also coming out. Now, here's the point where we look for the secrets on the interior. When you got to Simon & Schuster, what were your first impressions? How did it start to come across to you?
When I got there, it was actually what I thought it would be. It had great people, it had a great culture, and it was quiet. A little bit too quiet I felt, in terms of there was so much great things happening in the company, but we never talked about it. We never shouted about it, about the business itself.
So quiet in terms of not communicating out to the rest of the world
Yeah,
what was going
I
on.
think, you know,
Wow.
and you know, I think it's about a balance. I
right.
personally believe our business is about. It's about people, and when I talk about books, I think of them as authors who are people, and I think about the people in our business. It's a people's business. So I do think you have to get both right, because it's all about the relationships between the authors and the great people that work for you. So I felt when I got there that we did a brilliant job of celebrating the books, and we must continue to do that. But equally, we must celebrate us. We must celebrate the people in the business. So that was some sort of business. Like also one of the things I've been prioritizing when I got there is the people. Is the people. So again, all the things that you mentioned. That's about who Simon and Schuster was. Their brilliant publishing legacy, and the things, and also not just the great political books that they do in the US. I admired them for, in recent years, how they've really embraced, you know, they're meeting readers where they are. I love that. And how the backlist had been revitalized by the likes of like Book Talk and TikTok, etc. And that was super exciting to see how they really, you know, jumped onto that and made a huge success of that. So again, balance. So the great heritage and also the forward thinking that was going on in the company as well. Right. But again, I really wanted to talk more about that, and they don't just do it. Yeah. If you see what I mean.
Of course. And you were following Ian Chapman,
yeah,
who is a favorite of mine. I've always liked Ian, and he had shepherded the company very, very carefully for years with the same portfolio of the international as well as the in-country lead on the UK division. And yet probably I think that Ian had gotten so comfortable with the group. I think that's when you do start getting quieter. You find that many of the things that you put into place and that you wanted to see working are working.
Yeah.
And you forget you have to tell the rest of the world, look what's working. We did this. And so I think you're absolutely right. Probably most of publishing gets a little comfortable once things start getting on track.
Yeah. And remember, Porter, when I was rebuilding Bonnier, we were we had a startup, so we had to build our portfolio of authors and our backlist. And so I didn't have that. I couldn't attract great people to come and work for Bonnier because, you know, you're publishing X, Y, and Z authors. I didn't have that in my, you know, arsenal. So my starting point was about the company, the culture, what we stood for, our values, who are we, and that attracted the people that I needed to actually bring in the books and publish great books and build the business. So I felt my role was to get that right, and then the rest would follow. So having seen that work so well there, and I think also I think just 2025 and beyond, if I'm always looking ahead, if I want to become an employer of choice, young people want to know what their company that they work for, what they stand for. You know, what are their D&I policies? What is their sustainability policy? How do they publish? Who do they publish? They want to know, how do we work? They want to know that now. So you have to know that yourself then to be able to communicate it. So for me, that was the important part that needed interjecting here, in terms of like resetting that piece. The books got, and that's another reason I thought I don't have to worry about the books. I've got great books. They've got great authors. I just need to sort of do the culture piece reset. So just in terms of forward looking now.
You know, that says so much too for your work at Bonnier. We have been fascinated by that company for a long time, particularly in England. And I should tell you that on Friday, our final executive talk of the week, our third and final, will be Christian Schumacher-Gebler, who is the chief here of Bonnier, Germany. And they're doing great things. It's an enormous company and very, very powerful. And yet, What you're reminding me about is that there was a time when moving into new territories out of Stockholm, it was not something everybody knew. It was not somebody everybody was ready to look at and understand. That takes a lot of work.
Yes, it was. So, I mean, when had worked there 8 years, but when I became CEO, my first mission was to actually reconnect with our parent company and like
Yeah,
we had 200 years of history, respect that
yeah,
and harness that, but also what do the next 100 years look like? Where do we want to go as a company? Who do we want to be?
yeah.
And sort of embody all those sort of values, but do the next iteration of them. So it's always, I mean, I've grown up from an Indian family, so we're always taught to respect your elders, respect the
Right.
past. So always, I'm
Right.
always like, respect who you are, respect where you come from, but also evolve so you're relevant moving forward.
That's right.
And making sure you're constantly changing while staying true to who you are.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you know our friend John Watt from Bonnier in Britain is going to be with us this afternoon at 3 o'clock. John is quite an expert in audio and now in AI and audio, as one must be. And he's going to be with us this afternoon at 3 p.m., if you're able to come back, talking with us about just what you do about rights and translation transactions in the era of AI. What is it doing to how we exploit the rights of audio? So it's a great moment if you can join us for that too. Your folks are still everywhere, you see.
I know.
Your
it's
legacy
great.
is working behind you. Here comes John.
Great.
Yeah.
So I told you it's all about the people. It's all
Yeah.
about the people.
It is about the people, exactly. It was something that was said a great many times last night at the opening ceremony, if you had a chance to see it. It was wonderful. What are some of the standout moments so far? Do you have something that's sort of really stuck in your mind as, my God, I didn't expect that?
So I've had a few
Yeah,
already.
yeah, good.
Coming to 6 months now. One actually on day one of the job. I mean, literally, it was on day one. I arrived at my office, sat down. I think it was like an hour had gone in, and somebody from the publicity department came in and said, Perminder, we've had a call from Vogue, and you're in the Vogue top 25 women shaping, defining Britain, and they want you to be part of this feature. And I just sat there stunned, and I was like, what? And then the imposter syndrome hit hard, as it always does. Why? What have I done to do this? But I'm really glad I agreed to do it. It was quite a fun experience, I have to say, and enjoyable. But also, it was really important that I did that because of representation, because I was so surprised after the event how many, particularly women in the industry, messaged me when they found out, and they said, Perminder, we're so happy you've done this because publishing's been represented in such a cool way. We are, like a part of the creative industry. So I felt really pleased I did it for them. You're making publishing cool. And before you ask if you've seen the pictures, everyone keeps saying to me,
Yes, where are they?
I did try, but they didn't let me keep the boots. So
You have to see these pictures.
and then the second one, I guess, is, I suppose, shortly after that was John Kopp
Yeah.
announcing that he was going to step down from his CEO role and move into what he loves doing the most, which is publishing books. And he's such
That was
a great
bit of
publisher.
a shock, wasn't it?
It was a shock because he was one of the reasons I joined the company. He's incredibly smart. I have learned so much from him in this short space of time that we've been working together, and I still am. And selfishly, I wish it didn't happen when it has. But I completely respect his decision. And I understand why he's doing it. And I'm really pleased, actually. What softened the blow is that he's staying in the business, so I've still got access to him. So that's really helped. But that was a bit of I think that was in month 3. Another great moment is when we got told we were publishing Kamala Harris as well. I'm a huge fan of hers. And then I got to meet with her, a one-to-one meeting we had together, which was very special. And she managed to surpass every expectation in that meeting as well. You know, she's really humble, really dignified, and we had a really, you know, meaningful and enduring conversation. It was a real privilege. It's now I will treasure for a very long time.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm really feel really lucky and proud to bring her, publish her with my great colleagues in the US, bring her to the UK. She's coming to the UK next week, and I feel very privileged between that. And then finally, I guess when I got here, a part of the research piece, we made a decision that we're going to move offices, and we're going to do for the UK and international company, we're going to do a rebrand. So all of that to come in the coming months. We'll be revealing more in the coming weeks, but I'm incredibly excited about our new office space because it's not just a new address, but it will reflect how we work, how we connect, how just to, you know, in this new world of hybrid working, just to really bring people together. We're in the office and the way we're working. So really excited about that.
Will that have to, I'm always interested when people say something like that. Will that have to do with open workspace or perhaps more closed workspace? Or do you have any kind of specifics when you say how we work together? What does that mean?
So I came to this job with the blueprint, having been through this exercise at Bonnier. So we had, because I've always been an advocate for flexible working, I always said that I'm the leader I am today because of all my personal experiences. So I've been a working mum, trying to bring up 2 children, having a career, juggling all of that. I've always tried to, and things that need to be improved and make it better for the people coming behind me. So I've always felt like we got our women in industries, as we talked about, women, it's about minimum, like in most companies, 70%, if not 75% are women. Yet the rules and the structures and everything are not set there to let them like flourish. And, you know, I've gone through that. So it's really challenging. And then you have to make tough decisions about your career. And I've made plenty of those in my time. So I just think, you know, getting flexible working right. And it's not just straightforward saying, like, let's do flexible working. You know, before COVID, we used to work in the office 5 days a week. And what I learned was, because we were there 5 days, you would just ebb and flow between meetings, creative work, going external meetings. You just flowed naturally because those are your 5 days in the office. Then we had COVID, then everyone comes back to work and they're saying either you're 2 or 3 days. But what they're trying to do is shoehorn the same working week into that new way of working. Right. And actually, you can't do that because we learned that really quickly at Bonnier. So we was like, we have to start with a clean sheet of paper, and you have to think about why people are now coming to the office. If you're coming to the office 2 days or 3 days, whatever it is, what work do we want to do in the office, and what work should you do at home? So you rethink the working week. So, you know, right now, for instance, I encourage everyone to have your one-to-one meetings on the days you're working at home because that's easier to do on a Zoom call. Try and do your one meeting with 2 people or your head-down work or your focus work and do that at home. But when you come to the office, it should all be about creativity, engagement, brainstorming, your big group meetings.
So interaction.
Yeah. And then we need the office space has to and be an enabler for that. So you need the spaces that are going to get people's creative juices flowing, you know, make it more informal. I don't want like rigid spaces. In our new office, we're going to have like a quiet space for library because I understand not everyone also doesn't want to work from home or they don't have the ability to work from home. I have young kids or you might be in a flat share. I don't know. So you can come to the office 5 days if you want to. But as soon as I got to Simon & Schuster, I told everyone we're doing 2 days in the new place, so we might as well let's start getting that right now.
Right.
So transition to your 2 days. Let's think about the working week, and then by the time we get to our new office, we should be in the right cadence, the rhythm of getting the meetings right on the days that we're in.
Yeah.
Because there's hybrid meetings where some people are at home. It becomes difficult, and if you're just going to come to the office and plug your laptop in and just work, then that is also why you could have just done that at home, and that's why people get like, why come in?
Yeah. This is so enlightened. It's been interesting for journalism because a lot of people if you're not in a major network, as I was for a while, and you have to be on set, if you don't have to be right where you are, and now we're doing so many remote sets that even that can be handled outside of the building. What journalists have found is that the best work is done on the weekends because the phone stops ringing, right? And so the actual writing, the putting together of new material, and the building of the news as it will be presented during the coming week is happening on those weekends and usually at home. And that's been something quite enabling for an industry that used to sort of insist that everybody be sitting right in their ducks in a row, everybody in their proper place, and very, very helpful to free up a bit in that regard. And I love the fact that you're starting from that sense of flexibility and understanding, and use the need, let that be the lead instead of leading with the expectation, which may not be there at all. Before we leave this little area, you'd mentioned Jonathan Karp too, and I had the good fortune to speak with him at London Book Fair earlier in a very similar format to our executive talk here. John's an amazing man, and of course at the time we were doing that, we did not know that he was contemplating stepping away and taking over the publishing job of the primary imprint, from which he can run the creative side of the business he likes. And I think one of the fascinating things about his career is that we know him as a CEO now because he's, of course, been through a very difficult 5 years, including the pandemic and including many other upheavals, the business being sold as it happened. But what strikes you about John is that he was in the right place at a very difficult time because Carolyn Reidy's passing was completely unexpected. And overnight, he became the person who needed to step right in. And that's not the kind of contemplation he has the luxury of bringing to this new job. But as we were saying, he's still there in the company, which is going to be so good when he makes his transition. Because Perminder and he can, of course, still be in touch. So can so many other important people to him in his world from a different guise. And it's going to be interesting to see the next transition for John. Speaking of John, talk about, he's very friendly, he's very loquacious, and wants to be around everyone in the company. What is your leadership style? Are there points of specificity that you think about when somebody asks that?
I like to think I'm collaborative, but decisive. I love, when I want to make a decision, I love to co-create, consult, get everybody involved that is going to be sort of who it impacts and let them have a voice. But once we've made a decision, I'm laser focused on getting it done. It'll just get it done. I've also been told I lead with empathy. I hope that's true, because I genuinely do. I genuinely do care about people and equally the business and purpose, what we do, and the greater good. So, so I think that would probably sum up my leadership style.
Yeah. No, it's good. We've been together at Sharjah and in Dubai for, I think, an evening when we were all moving around in the Middle East. And Perminder's a wonderful person if you just have time to spend with her, too. Because in a small group of people, definitely will take the lead. When everybody's dithering about where to go to eat or something like that, she'll decide. And then it's a great decision. It's really a good experience. So I can vouch for this leadership.
Very decisive.
Yeah, it's great. And I wish we had a few more of those available when we're in Sharjah, too, because it was fun. We had a good time. In terms of industry leadership and collaboration, where does this come down? You've held several industry-wide positions, working a great deal with PA, for example, Publishers Association in London. What is your, what am I trying to say? What is your vision of what this should be from folks who are at the top level and thus very pressed for time? This is not easy to work into the kind of career you have.
I mean, even myself, always my day job comes first. However, I think there's so much value looking outside the walls that you operate, particularly when the industry can come together and really advocate and champion for a collective cause. For example, when I was president of the Publishers Association, I was very lucky and privileged to be in a position where I was one of the people that have kick-started this initiative, which is called the National Year of Reading for 2026 in the UK, which was just recently announced. Because when you get that platform when you become president, and for me, having access to books is really important. When I was a child, my first book came from a library, and actually, to be honest, until I was an adult, my only access to books were either the public library or the school libraries, because we just couldn't afford to get books. So I know how important libraries are, and I really wanted to champion how important having books and having access to the right books, because it's also got to be books that you connect with, that are meaningful to you. So they need to be books that are representative of, like, and the stories are universal. So I mean, I've always loved reading, but when you find a book that actually you see yourself in, it's something super powerful, and can really move you and can impact you in many ways. So I know how important books are to society, to young children, to adults, to everyone. So I got involved with, sort of helped kickstart this initiative, and I'm so thankful to both the Publishers Association, the charity, the National Literacy Trust, and the incredibly inspiring Baroness Gail-Reebok, who's amazing. They've managed to galvanise the whole industry to come together alongside government educators to get behind this year-long campaign called the National Year of Reading, which will run throughout January to December next year. And I'm so excited and so grateful for this, what I think is a very important and powerful initiative.
It's especially important, I think, at a time when all of the creative industries in the UK, but particularly publishing, have been in leadership roles in terms of the AI questions and how this is handled, particularly in government policy. Not the right results so far have been achieved, and yet a marvelous effort, which was spearheaded by the PA, Dan Conway and his group, and watching, by extension, the development of this new campaign to get Britons reading is exciting, because it brings to the consciousness of the public exactly what the AI question is about, which can be a little in the weeds for the general reader. But if you start looking at, well, this is to get us all reading, okay, I get that. It's nice. I like the timing of this thing. I first learned about it, of course, from the bookseller. I'm pointing at Philip Jones, my great colleague, who's here with us this morning. And of course, the bookseller is just in there leading the way with this thing. It's marvelous to see. We could learn a few things from the States when we see something like this, the way you're doing it. So I think it's great, and I do appreciate, it's something I feel like we should all say to you, finding the time to do these things, because that is not easy. The kind of job you've got could be absolutely everything you needed and more.
See, but I don't see it as a job.
Really?
I feel really lucky and privileged that I get to do something I love. So
Yeah.
I don't see it. We talk about work. People say to me, work-life balance. I believe in work-life harmony, and I think because when this is how flexible working kicks in as well. It only works if everything flows in harmony, and sometimes work, takes priority. Sometimes my family takes priority. There's never like 50 like that there, and that I don't put them there like that. They just ebbs and flows. And I think that's where, and because I'm lucky enough, I'm in a role, in a job, in an industry that I love, and I do something that I feel has purpose. Well, if it has purpose, I really care about people reading, children having access to books. I feel, books can change lives. I think it can really help, especially in current climate, help bring people together. It doesn't feel like work at all.
Well, you don't have an extra room at your house, do you? I am not so good at work-life balance. Some days it feels like work. I could learn a lot from this. I think this is great, and I think from what I've known of your work so far over the years, at Bonnier, now I'm learning you, if you will, at Simon & Schuster, that joy in the work really shows.
Yes.
It comes across. It must be infectious to the staff.
Yeah, I do say to my team as well, of course, there are challenges. That's life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we must embrace the challenges as part of the journey, and we learn from them. And if we're not uncomfortable, how do we improve? How do we get better? It's
Right.
a part of the process. Failing is part of the process. Not getting things right. I always say it's better to try than not try at all, because
Right.
you'll never move forward, right? But at least if you try something, at least we will learn something from it, even if the outcome is not what we had hoped for.
Right.
The most important thing is, and I say this both to my children at home and I say it to my colleagues at work, stop for a moment, assess what went wrong, what didn't, let's learn from it, and then get up and let's go again. And that is what matters the most, is the constant moving forward, learning, and doing it collectively as a team. I'm learning all the time. And another reason I love building teams is I get excited about hiring really amazing people that I'm going to learn from, and I feed off that energy, and I guess then they get it back, because I'm like, oh my God, I don't know about this. I'm going to hire someone that's an expert in that field, and I want to learn from them, and so that's another reason. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly evolving. So that keeps me energized.
Yeah. No, it's so good you talk about the thing of if you're down, you get up and you go again, because that also takes the onus off of, oh my gosh, we got it wrong.
Yeah.
So much energy goes into, we didn't do this right, and that's not very productive energy. I mean, as long as you've got enough understanding of what didn't go right to do it again and try a different approach, you're ready. It's time to move and do it again. And I love that. In fact, speaking of that, it's a good segue to the challenges that we're looking at in the industry right now. We should always say the opportunities as well. But of course, one of the great mysteries we're looking at right now in terms of challenge or opportunity is AI. And if there's anything I wish we'd gotten a little bit smarter on earlier about AI, was we needed two different terms. Generative AI can be an incredibly negative force. And right now, particularly in the United States, where we all live in court, with these things, it's really very difficult for copyright. Whereas AI that may help with productivity is a different thing, and yet we've got the same term going on. It's really kind of difficult. But talk to us a little about what you see as these challenges and how you're approaching them.
So on the subject of AI, again, I'm going to your point. I do feel the AI companies, like that recent case of copyright theft, has understandably made everybody suspicious and nervous about it, and I get that. That hasn't helped. But at the same time, I'm a great believer in an assisted AI where it helps us do our job more efficiently, more effectively, can be brilliant. I mean, there's so many things that our industry have been, issues that we've been talking about, like burnout, for instance, and sustainability. We print too many books and all these sort of things. I think that's where AI can really come in and like take over the repetitive tasks or help us make smarter decisions about print runs. Those sort of things, feeding into those sort of, to make us more sustainable and make us more productive at work and doing the jobs that's why we're there in a creative industry, to do those roles. I think that's where it can be brilliant. I agree on the generative side, yes. And all like you, I just wish we don't use the word AI. We use the names of software, whatever that is, whether that's like ChatGPT or, because we don't, we don't talk about Excel and PowerPoint or Word like in one brushstroke, Microsoft Office suite, do we? So we say Word or we say Excel. The same thing with AI. We keep using the word AI, and I'm like, okay, there are certain software, certain things that can actually help us do our job more effectively, but actually equally we have to be careful about how we use things. We need to be transparent. There needs to be a balance and clarity on what we're doing and why we're doing it, and have a real understanding of why we're using it. So, but we shouldn't fear it, because it's here, and I think it will help with some of the issues we had as an industry in terms of, particularly, I'm more so on the burnout side. I'm thinking, it could really release people from some really heavy admin tasks and actually focus on the creative parts.
It would be great to see that kind of strength come into it at this point too, because we're at least in my culture, we're getting so much negative news about it. The BISG, that's the Business Industry Study Group in the United States, which is just terrific, led by Brian O'Leary and Brooke Horn, has done a very, very recent study of people who are in publishing, in the offices, more than 500 of them, saying, how are you using AI there? Is it working for you? Do you like what's happening? We're finding in that particular study that the usage is way, way down. It's really not in these offices yet, and if it is, people are quite suspicious of it and not comfortable with it or anything. Javier Celaya, our good friend, is sitting here, who's just done a white paper for Frankfurt. You may want to look it up on the site. That has to deal with AI and audio and where that may in fact boost the industry and where in fact it could be difficult. So it's this approach avoidance situation we're in right now. It reminds me of the old days of digital.
Yeah.
When we ran around going, digital is going to kill us, no digital is going to save us. It has that same dichotomy.
And I think, again, for an industry, and I've been for a while, watched these changes come in, we've always been suspicious, or we always worry and we always panic about this. So an industry that's naturally sort of susceptible, that's our default position. Yep. With the AI companies doing what they've done, haven't helped the cause personally. I just think, had they just been transparent from the outset, we've done licensing deals before, could have had those conversations and just done it all above board, it may have not, people wouldn't have pulled up the drawbridges, I think, in the same way. But I completely understand why people have. I completely get that. But it's also, frustratingly, I also can see the great advantages of using it as well. So would love to be able to accelerate AI where it can help us in a meaningful way.
And to learn that without something as traumatic as the pandemic.
Yeah.
In digital, of course, there was a moment at which, particularly in the cultures like ours that were very advanced in terms of online retail, there was a moment where everybody went, digital's not so bad, is it? It's actually working for us. Because in parts of the world that we cover, where there is not such electronic distribution in place and working well, there were booksellers closing all over the place, particularly the Middle East, lost some 27% of its booksellers during the pandemic because they simply had no infrastructure in place to let somebody order, even by what the French call click and collect, where you order it and pick it up at the store on the curb. They had no such thing in place. And you look at the way we're looking at AI right now with this same sky is falling feeling, and I suppose I think it's part of the personality of the industry, but maybe being a little more sanguine could be helpful.
Well, on the digital piece as well, I think, what the pandemic showed was it really showed the stark inequalities in our society, particularly when it came to education, for instance, where everyone was like, we had to go on to online learning. What schools didn't realize was not every household had access. Not every child has access to a laptop, have their own laptop. You're sharing it in the family. They may not have great Wi-Fi. It's kind of like people suddenly woke up. Not everybody has that. Not everybody has their own. And no, they don't. They don't actually. So then this whole campaign started about recycling laptops if you don't have them to get them to the kids that don't. And I would say also about on the digital piece, how that ties in with that is that there's an assumption that everybody has a computer or a PC or a Mac around the world. No, they don't. Not everyone can afford one and not everyone has one. But what most people do have? They have access to a phone, that's right? So actually we need to think, if we genuinely care about people reading, we want more people reading or listening, and we don't want to be judge and jury about what they read or what they listen to, we give them what they want. A great delivery platform is the phone and subscription, because if we all think about how we engage with subscription on Netflix, for instance, isn't it a great place you can go in, you've paid your subscription for the month, and then you try different things. It's not a considered purchase. You can flick, I sometimes annoyingly spend too long flicking, but you flick from show to show to show till you land on something that you actually like. and then you engage, and then you binge watch whatever, and then you actually want more of that, and then they do the recommends. I do think these platforms could introduce people who are not regular readers, who have access to books. Actually, it's a great entry point to experiment and trying different books, different things, without committing. And hopefully, even if 1 out of every 5 of those converts into a long-time reader, isn't that a good thing? So then they go and buy a physical book, or they might go and listen to the whole backlist, and they can't do it in their subscription, so they buy. So I do think it's more of an entry point for if we want to reach more readers and listeners. That's how that is a great way. So through digital.
I agree completely. And subscription itself was a bump in the road for many in publishing. There were so many who didn't feel like that was something we could make work. There were a lot of not very good trials at the beginning before a viable system was worked out and actually turning the penny as was needed. And in fact, I agree with you. I think it's proven to be very helpful in introducing people to what we want them to be introduced to, for heaven's sake, Yeah. Let's look. We've only got a few minutes left. May I ask you what it is? I think we've heard some of the best answers already from you, but what is it that still really excites you about publishing, about books?
I guess because I care about reaching more readers and listeners. I want to get more people reading.
Yeah.
I guess the recent growth of the English language publishing around the world has really grown the publishing for me, in terms of from a publisher's point of view, how many readers and audiences we can reach now. And social media platforms have played a big part in that, in terms of really bringing down the barriers of discoverability. And in these communities and these different platforms, people are discovering books from peers. And that's a wonderful thing to see, because they are, they talk about them in their communities, they're advocating for them, and then they want to read them wherever they are in the world. And it shows how stories are global, actually. And for me, that's been super exciting, just growing our readership, thanks to these platforms. And borders are not barriers anymore, and then also we're not reliant on, I'm not saying it's like one broad brushstroke strategy for all our publishing. Every part of our portfolio needs a different strategy in terms of how we take it to market. Sure. But I think there is a part of our portfolio now that actually we can connect with readers wherever they are, thanks to these platforms. Mm-hmm. And that's super exciting. It really democratizes the industry, I think, in the same way Amazon, even though it was enemy, part friend, I could see both sides, because actually when I tried to find authors that people didn't, the gatekeepers, understandably, at retailers, they're constrained by commercial sort of constraints about what they can take in and what risks they're going to take, and because they've got to deliver a return. Actually, when Amazon came along, I remember we could just put a book up there, and then it was on us to drive discoverability, to drive the audience, to create the awareness. And that felt incredibly empowering as well, because if we really believed in something, it was on us to see if it worked. And then obviously I've heard a few cases of this, when we got it working on that platform, then the rest of retail took it as well, because they're less risk averse, because it was just the nature of their business. So it meant we can be more, it's opening up publishing, making it more inclusive, more representative. We can experiment more. We can showcase more voices from around the world. I just love the idea now that I want to be a true global publisher. I want to publish books from voices all around the world for audiences all around the world. And that's truly inclusive, right?
It truly is. If you can join us tomorrow, our executive talk is with Veronique Cardi, who is another great woman CEO sitting in Paris. She is running JC Latte, and she's quite good on influencers. She took several with her to meet Dan Brown in Prague. And what she's learning is the authenticity that they bring to their communications. They don't want it to look at all like she knows them. They want to be out there themselves recommending the book to their friends. And it's an incredibly powerful movement that you're right, that can be tapped into in a way that we didn't have before. So that's at 11:30, by the way. We start at half an hour later tomorrow with Veronique. Finally, I think we've got just a few seconds here. We're going to take a couple. Can you tell us about a couple of books you're excited about that are coming?
So
I know,
many
I know,
brought
I
it. But
A couple of seconds.
it was hard. It was hard to pick. I've picked two very different books. One is Underwater by Tamara Mellon, published by Summit Books next year. It's a book about grief, friendship. It kind of like, when you finish it, it just stays with you for so long. Just make sure you've got a box of tissues when you're reading that. And then something very completely different is the next installment from Geneva Rose. Yes, so it promises to be everything that she's, an unputdownable, funny, dark, twisty thriller. I'm really looking forward to that. But it's just like, I read a broad range of books, and again, the breadth of our publishing reflects that. So.
I was going to say, just between the two of those, look at the difference. Look at the vast distance in terms of content.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Oh, this has been wonderful. Listen, thank you so much. It's been great to have you with us, Perminder.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, such wonderful comments. Thanks
Thank you
for
for
letting me
coming,
ask
everyone,
my
listening.
nattering questions, and thank you all. Do join us all week long. We'll be here in Publishing Perspectives Forum. Thanks again.